achievement or something worse, if that's worse. And I think that's what the grassroots salsa people do. We do good stuff without really realizing it. We get people touching. Humans are built to touch. It's our psychology. If we don't touch, we go crazy, like a locked up animal. And we're all missing that lack of touch.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I said 95% of people don't dance in the UK.
Yeah.
I think it was about 20%, give or take, 20% are actually adverse to touch. They do not want to be touched.
God.
This was a BBC research. They did a big survey just before lockdown. I think it overlapped lockdown by a week last year. This big thing about touch. So that leaves 80% who could and 5% who do. God. The market for salsa is 75%. Is that right? Yeah, 100. Less than 20 who don't, so that's 80. Yeah. Less than 5% who already do, like we've done in the past. 75% of the population.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible. Incredible.
So do I get to answer your question properly? And I waffled a bit to try and give myself thinking time. Yeah, there we go. This is great because normally as a therapist, I just, there's a 99% is listening and then just putting a key question in. So this is, I'm going to let my ego off the leash for a moment and say, this is great. I'm loving the sound of my own voice. This is great. And I have to say, this is, my favorite subject, bar none. Okay, cats and comedy are up pretty close to that, but yeah. So do I get enough recognition? No.
I agree.
I got a huge buzz from getting that TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence. That meant more to me than so much more. I was sharing a room with Nelson Batista at that British Salsa Congress in Bogota, the year he was given a Lifetime Achievement Award for salsa, and he gave me a shout out, mainly because we were sharing a chalet together, and I felt that swell of pride that this was kind of recognition. If I turn the question around in true therapist style and say, do I give others on the salsa scene the respect and recognition that I clearly crave myself? And I think I've only recently started to do that.
Okay.
So you reap what you sow.
Wow. Okay.
And I think the salsa scene has been dominated by mavericks, usually men, with very strong personalities, and who maybe don't have the skills of working with big groups and companies. And that's why, back in the 90s when sort of Paul Young came along and just started doing congresses differently, it was a massive leg up because he had those communications or business skills.
Business skills, yeah.
Yeah. And what so many companies do, which I have done, is we innovate, we get something new, and we plateau. And I've been plateauing, and that was the hesitation in my voice in terms of how well have I done.
Okay.
I plateaued, and I should have carried on going up. And maybe Mambasa is the chance to go up again. Or maybe it'll be something that someone else does. I'm encouraged by Urban Kids, because that sounds like quite an innovative project that they've done. I think it's over in France. I don't know much about the whole Kazumba thing, but
it is. I think I had the conversation I think yesterday about that. It is. I think what's kind of sad is the people who do urban kids and bachata sensual or whatever it's called, is they're not interested in the culture, in the history. I think, but it's veered off into another dance skill. It's of course.
I think that particularly bachata sensual has become the epitome of this how it looks culture. It is designed by selfies for selfie photographic purposes. I mean, it does look amazing, but
I love watching it. I'm totally I don't want to dance it, I always say, but I love watching them. It's, for me, it's fascinating to watch. And the level of the shows are astonishing. But I don't want to dance it. I'm far too old for that anyway.
I have to say, and it's part of my background in culture, that I find it too close. I find, and I remember feeling the same thing when I started dancing about merengue, when it was danced by, that I like to be invited into closeness and not to assume it's there.
Yeah.
And I find that, sort of, it's just, there's that, and I've always been a bit tubby, so I'm very aware that my first point of contact is my belly. And that's not it's not like I'm wearing a black t-shirt so I look slim.
Oh my goodness. Alistair, I want to say we've come to the end, and I've decided I would love to do rapid fire with you.
Okay.
To have a little bit of fun. Some people do struggle with this, and I'm wondering if you're going to struggle. Basically, I give you two choices, and you just say quickly one or the other. And I love the
way you set me up to fail there. I love that. You might struggle with this, and so hey, can the audience please lower their expectations, please?
Well, do you know what? I think for some people it's very hard for them to give a quick answer, and they want to explain the reason why and stuff like that. So
I've emceed 2 comedy shows in full runs at the Edinburgh Fringe. I can handle it.
Okay.
As long as you're not a Glaswegian student, I can't handle them at all.
No, I'm definitely not. Okay. Some of them are easy, to be honest, and because I know you, I know what your answer's going to be. So, post crossbody lead or pre crossbody lead?
Definitely pre.
Okay. Salsa dura, salsa romantica.
Good one. Dura. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely Dura. But I like Mark Anthony as well.
Okay. Cuban salsa or New York style?
No answer. I hate the polarization of the salsa scene. And I think they both offer brilliant things. The fun and relaxed and teamness of Cuban salsa, and the precision and elegance associated with New York salsa. They both have so much to offer.
Okay. Good answer. Favorite salsa song?
Oh, you probably don't know it, but there's a Cuban artist called Raul Paz. And he does a lovely song. I always get muddled up because he got 2 on the same album. One's called Mulata, and the other one is called, I'll have to look it up, it's on my phone. I really wish I'd thought of an answer before that. You were bound to it.
Well, this is the part where you don't get any hints of what I'm going to ask.
Okay, second choice. I'm going to go right the way back. My first ever connection to song is Gilberto Portavales, and that song where he goes, I get on my horse and ride off into the hills. I'm not going to attempt to sing it in Spanish. It's too cruel.
Okay. I'm going to...
Third choice, Besame Mucho, played by my wife. Oh my God, I just say it.
Okay. Favorite
sorry. I've actually got the answer I want to now. I love this rapid fire thing. It's just so fast. Mi Tierra by Gloria Estefan.
Oh, really? Wow. Do you know what? Sorry, go on.
There's several reasons. My wife and I used to do demonstrations to it in 1994. It was, in my mind, the production standards on that album were head and shoulders above other records, and I totally understand if every Latin DJ argues against that point. I totally respect them for it. There is also a story that she had she suffered a very bad car crash, and I think the Latin album, if my memory serves me correct, was part of her recovery. She doesn't dance on the video because her leg was quite badly damaged, I think.
Damaged by the car crash.
and I think that's quite of, that's quite significant in terms of her journey. And it shows a lot of respect. There's good music in the 90s coming out. There was good stuff happening.
I do remember that song.
There was a lovely guy called Danny, and he was in the South Fusion demonstration team back when we were. He was a photographer at the one of the big places, the Royal Albert Museum. One of the ones. Things. And he was driving back from Essex on the A10 with his girlfriends, and the lorry that had not had enough sleep. He stopped, and the lorry didn't, and he was killed.
Oh gosh!
It was the first salsa funeral, and there's been far too many. Mention one or two names, Stephanie and Cheryl, and that lovely salsa teacher who died in Spain.
Lee Wright.
Yes. And there's been too many. He was my first one, and they played a track from the Meteora, the slow track from the Meteora album. For me, that takes me back to those days.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So, favorite salsa club?
Well, I'm not really running one at the moment, so I can't say.
In all of your time in salsa, what was your favorite salsa club?
Oh, you're not going to get a short answer for that.
Okay. I'm used to it. Don't worry.
I've got a lot of nostalgia for Salsa Soho, and I know the purists don't like it, but from a business point of view, that venue created a format 30 years ago. I think it's over 30 years now, that is still with us today, and it's been bought out by ever bigger companies. Capital Radio, now it's Stonegate, of course, and they've got 60 venues in Soho, all over the place, and they all keep it as bar salsa. Stonegate own La Tasca. They could turn it into a tapas spot, but they keep it as bar salsa because the combination of bar, classes, restaurant, club works. It is busier and buzzier because of it, and it's people's first introduction to salsa for many people. And sometimes the stuff doesn't work properly as it should do, and all the rest of it. I had my stag party at Bar Salsa in 1995, and I've been teaching there since 2003. And it's got a big. When I got the news that I could go back there and do more dates there, it was a massive weight off my shoulders. It's somewhere I like to be. I like the idea of being in the middle of Soho, in a place. I'm an old Doctor Who fan. The idea of going into something the size of a shop front and opening out into a club. That's my TARDIS. That's my TARDIS.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So many connections, so many good times, so many wonderful people, and I really like the team that run it. I don't like all of their policies. I don't like the music policy. I would like it to be more salsa, and I think the world has gone reggaeton crazy. But it still survives, and it's still salsa, and it still has good salsa classes. And temple is growing in my heart as well. So yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to give where shall I say? I'll leave it with Salsa Soho. So many of the other places that are flashing in through my mind are about events and people and that. And I don't think the bricks and mortar is that appropriate. It's the people and the dance floor and the track that was playing that sticks in my mind years later. And let's face it, most of the places, that I like, Turnmills, it's a block of flats. The City Bar is now some Zoroastrian church. So many places have been knocked down, moved on, redeveloped. So, I've made a count not so long ago, and it's over 50 venues I've taught at, and I don't count it unless I've taught at it twice, so it doesn't count one off.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
God, I've just thought of another one. I haven't got on the list Barmed in Beaconsfield. That used to be good.
Oh, I think I know that one.
Yeah, used to do a few classes there. Not a weekly thing, but I've done a few bits.
You're divided.
There it is, 50 something now. Bit like me.
You're divided. Okay, so this question: a live band or a DJ to dance to?
Easy on both fronts. My favourite DJ is my wife, DJ Felicidad. She is the longest standing female DJ on the salsa scene, although she doesn't gig. And she has definitely never received the credit she deserves, because she's been kind of, in my shadow. I'm the teacher, I'm the person up front. She's behind the decks. She brings together the three essential elements. She's a musician, she gets it. She's a dancer, she gets it, and she reads the floor like nothing else. And she brings with it a love of Latin music that goes so far beyond. She's in the tradition of DJ Ara and Marco at Brazilian guy at the sort of South Palladium in Leicester Square. She's in that thing. A close second, I think, would be, apart from the ones I mentioned, would be Julio Martinez. There was something exceptional back in the 90s. You never saw Julio still. He danced the whole time. He would stand up with his big bins of headphones on, and he would just dance in a way. He was never in time, because he was always dancing to the track he was about to play, not the track we were dancing to.
I see. Okay.
Bands, internationally, Oscar de Leon.
Yeah.
The best
Fabulous.
stage act that I know. He even made a 10-minute version of the Macarena, amazing, at the Roundhouse in Camden. It was just fabulous. Blew it away. Favorite UK band, and I think it's really important to recognise it, because so many aren't around at the moment. I think of the work like Grupo X, and they were reworking Boogaloo.
Just remember,
Nina Jaffa, who was doing Merengada.
Yeah, I loved them.
I think it was #2 in the Miami charts, and no recognition on the UK scene whatsoever.
Exactly, yeah.
It was outrageous. Luis Mosquera.
He now is back in Colombia,
but in my mind, top of the list by far, head and shoulders, and she won't like me saying this, is Sarah McGuinness. Sarah has been a cornerstone of the live music scene. She lectures in music. She, according to her, I saw her on a panel at an event, and she said she never really wanted to be a band leader, but as a woman she didn't get asked to be in the bands. Bit of a boys' club.
Wow.
And so she runs it, and since 1998 she has run my little project called the Havana Cafe Descarga, and it was based on me and my wife going to Cuba, and we saw all those bands playing in the cafes, and they played this old Latin sets, the sort of song and Son de la Loma and those kind of songs. And I thought, yeah, this is right. This is kind of has a balance to it. This feels right. So when we got back, I didn't want to interrupt what she was doing and her brand she was building, which is now, it was Grupo Loquito, and it's Sarah Banda. and they had a big gig just last weekend, I think it was.
I was there. No, I wasn't there the last weekend. I couldn't make that one. I was there the weekend before that with her smaller band. Sorry, to correct myself.
And she, so the Havana Cafe was kind of like my rebranding of what she does. And we have so many musicians have come through and played, and people fresh out of college have played. And there's a beautiful lady who plays the flute, and she comes all the way up from Rye in East Sussex. Cool. And we did it, first of all, in fairness, the very first gig was done by Alex Wilson, led it. And he's pretty high up on the list. But Sarah took over the discography at Turnmills, which is another, project that I didn't feel got recognised. It was the first time we had weekly classes and 4 classes at advanced level in different styles of salsa. So we had an on-tour room with Cy and Deanne. We had a advanced Pachanga Boogaloo room with Nadeem. We had an intermediate class with David Barsi. We had so many people there. Philip Langvey's taught there. As guest teachers, we had I think Mario taught there. I think that's the only time I've worked with him. Mario B did a guest slot there. Nelson taught originally. Giamara actually taught. It was the one time we had weeks with her as well. She was like a big tick on my list of salsa teacher stickers. I regret that we didn't get everyone, yourself included.
But can't always have everyone.
Yeah, and that was just a Tuesday night in Farringdon. I mean, it's
I do remember going to that event as well. It was very good.
It was never kind of busy enough, and it was always a bit dark and dingy. And the management were, it was a Tuesday night. The owner's son was Tall Paul, the DJ that was playing like 25 grand. I'd turn up on a Tuesday, and the Chemical Brothers were in the DJ box, laying out.
I didn't know that.
And there's me going, I hope I own 45 quid tonight. And they banded 20. I'd beat it. But all sorts of stories and stuff there. But we've done, I've tried to innovate throughout my career where I can. One of the more recent ones was at Gabetto, where I came up with a format called Blend, where we had 3 classes operating in the space of 2 with John there. And it failed. As a lot of concepts do. I set up a Ambelsa project called Dancing Squares, which was 3 open-air locations. So one was a Granary Square in King's Cross, Paddington and that. And the idea was to do 20-minute dance classes in people's lunchtime with silent disco equipment.
Wow.
And it was great. The booking system, they could just book it on a QR code. It was fabulous. The only problem was those workers, they don't take 20 minutes for lunch. They sit at their desk and they eat a sandwich they bought from Pressamongio on the way in. No, didn't happen, died. But you learn. So, I think the scene needs to be brave, and it needs to make mistakes, because out of that same process comes the One Day Intensive course, the Thames Salsa Cruise, the Mambalsa project, the Edinburgh Fringe shows, which are always kind of like a
interesting
back in motion.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I do have. I was going to ask you one final question, but you answered it already yourself, which was about the club. So that's totally fine. But I just want to say, Alistair, thank you so much for this interview. It's been really lovely to hear. First of all, your background, because I didn't know your background. I didn't know whether you were English, Irish, or Scottish. So that's been really interesting. And actually, just listening to your whole story, I've really enjoyed it, and I just want to thank you. And as I said, it's interesting to ask you about whether you feel that you've got a lot of recognition, and even discussing, I discussed with Latino Life who I want to interview. And they said exactly the same, that for sure, without a doubt, you should be interviewed because you are a major part of the history. And I think it's really important for people to hear your story of how you started, and also because you were really the I don't even call it the second generation. You were the first generation after the Latinos, you know, and that's a pretty major thing, because this is actually, I think really when people think about the second generation, and it's even the way I did the history of the salsa, is people saw that it was, people really recognized Elder Ramiro, and then the next people they recognized were people like Robert Charlemagne, and then, you know, Leon Rose, but you were before them.
So, Leon taught at South University. Yeah, Robert Charlemagne taught at South University. I mean, obviously they were established first, but I think. But there's a lot of people who I have so much respect for, who taught in the suburbs, or taught in small towns up and down the country. Because once my generation took it out to the suburbs, but the next generation took it to the small towns, and you know, I think of people on, you know, people are teaching in Kent, and I just go, what, really? You know, people are actually teaching in Kent? Have they been to Kent? Are they sure they know what it is? It's so strange, and I think a lovely way of perhaps summing up the sort of cyclical nature of it, that these things come and they become trendy and new, and then they plateau and they fade. To put a big picture on it, my uncle and aunt, and they're down in Portsmouth, and they just celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary. Wow. One's 91, the other one's 90. They met in a dance hall. I think it was during the Second World War. He was a sailor in his uniform. Obviously, he's a British sailor, so he had a better uniform than Dean Kelly. And she was a glammed up girl, and they met in the dance hall. And I think they're there now without dancing. And we kind of lost that. I remember Ansel Shazam from the UKA saying that we kind of, I think it was him, he said we kind of lost partner dancing, and he put it down to April 1966. I'm picking the date out of the air, when the Beatles released Twist and Shout. The record where I got all the scratches on from my mum. That's when people finally stopped dancing in partners. Before then, up in the 50s, you'd always have a few partner dances at a dance.
It was normal,
Yeah, we went there. But fortunately, we lost it here, but they didn't lose it in New York. They didn't lose it in Cuba. They didn't lose it in Colombia. And I feel that they sort of repopulated us, and I've just enjoyed. It's been a delight exploring the way rhythms have moved from Mali down to Nigeria to Cuba to America, and then across to the UK in rock and roll, and then back in, and then here and fold. It's just like someone folding dough, making bread, with people coming round through the world, and then you get some article in a paper that says that they found that this was, I think, Christmas before last. They found that orangutans in the rain move rhythmically to the movement. They dance.
Really?
And that put. I mean, I knew it was 100,000 years old because you can tell from the expression that they found Neolithic flutes, so they had music. And how can you have music if you don't have dance? It's it'd be crazy. You know, they had a flutist concert. No, they would dance. Dance is one of the expressions you can do pre-language, which is 100,000 years ago.
True.
So you can express, you can emote, and communicate through dance. You can show your availability. One of the questions I often ask, I'm sorry if I'm overrunning. Am I okay?
It's okay. It's okay.
One of the questions that always fascinated me is there an evolutionary reason for spinning? That's what happens when I got too much time on that. You know, you can understand people jumping because that gives you an advantage in a fight or hunting or something like that. You can understand people lunging and moving and all sorts of movements. But a spin seems kind of alien. So why would people spin from an evolutionary point of view? And when you think what dance has always been used for as a way of people to one, express themselves and to present themselves as available in a safe space, in a, you know, your father-in-law is not going to club you to death if you come on, because there are rules around it, there are boundaries, just like we have in salsa of what's acceptable and what's not. Spinning then becomes a way of producing an exciting expression. It becomes a way of saying that, and then there's all sorts of evolutionary theory about young ladies having long hair. Talking about the hair again. I've got this issue with hair. It's like, you know, it's not something I experience every day, but, you know, it's about either projecting pheromones, or it's about giving a sort of slow motion appearance. Those lovely hair flicks they show the confidence, a fluidity of movement. And dance and spinning can offer that, and that to me puts it on a timeline that takes it back to, you know, pre-speech, and the research with an orangutan puts it into hundreds of thousands of years, onto an evolutionary process. And you think that the partner hold has been around since the, you know, what century, 10th century, 14th century, something like that. We're just folds of dough. Folds of dough. And I really hope that, well, I'm certain, I believe dance will continue.
It will continue, for sure. For sure. It's, as you said, you know, we need that contact, don't we? So, yeah, it's just a shame we can't get a higher percentage needing.
That's the challenge. That's the challenge. If we can go from 5% to 10%, we double the scene. We double it.
Double the scene.
And there's 80% available. You know, we've got to get, this is why, you know, the Swing Patrol, the Jive company, you know, one of the dragons from Dragon's Den has invested in them.
Oh gosh, really?
Oh yeah. It was you know, the lady in Dragon, we call her Lady
Deborah.
Dragon. And so she's invested in those. We just got to get it up to the next level, and then we get full-time jobs. Then we get you know, part-time guest teaching things. Another way we need to take it forward is to get it televised. You know, the congresses can get bigger and bigger, but they're not visually good enough, and we know they're not good enough because the television people haven't valued them. And to be honest, when I compare it with snooker, I think dance is more interesting than snooker.
It is, for sure. It is.
We haven't even touched on the detrimental effects of Strictly Come Dancing on the salsa scene.
Do you know what? When just before you said that, it crossed into my mind, and I thought I better not say anything about it. But people are more happy accepting that is salsa than the real thing. It's interesting, you know, but that can be a subject for another time, because I've got some opinions on that. I would love to invite you back on a different subject, actually. I will reveal that to you later. But I would really love that. It's been a fabulous interview, and I can't wait for this to be aired on Sunday. So it's been wonderful, and I just want to thank you. And do you have any final thoughts that you want to share? I do. I've had a long, lingering ambition to do exactly what you've done, and I would like to perhaps put my comedy compere skills combined with my psychotherapy training and our relationship as dance teachers and a shared experience, and ask if I could be the one who interviews you, because you should be on this documentary. You are part of this scene, and I don't think you have received the recognition. Oh, that's very kind. Well, I have to accept, don't I?
You do. Yeah, absolutely, you do. I've just noticed the time. My God.
Yes, it goes quick, doesn't it?
We didn't even touch on my 7 productions with the BBC.
Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, well, what was interesting is the first one was purely by chance. The director saw it, and it was an all-black production. It was called Baby Father back in the 90s with Angela Griffin and David Harewood. Apart from a few members of the crew, all the actors, the director, the scene of things, it was quite. It was a real BBC statement that was a real message being sent. And I was the only guy who wasn't.
Wow.
Which was great. I loved working with David Harewood and Angela Griffin. Their acting skills put into Salsa was just amazing. And we were commissioned to do a 2-minute, 20 seconds, and they were quite precise on it. Demonstration. It was supposed to be their first dance at a wedding, which was filmed at the Porchester Hall, and they did it, and they did it on the first take, and it was perfect. And when they did it, everyone, crew, camera, all the extras, because there were about 60 extras in the room as a wedding, and we were like, hey, and up we went. Most of the productions were pre-shag scenes, casual Christmas special, bit of salsa, and then a quick shag under the stairwell, and then that's so there's the. But the best one was the last series of Alvida Saint Pet, which was supposed to be filmed in Cuba. But President Bush had said, done his Axis of Evil speech, including Cuba, and therefore they were not going to let the BBC in to film. So the outdoor stuff was done in the Dominican Republic, and the indoor dance scenes were done in all sorts of places like Hornsey Town Hall in Crouch End. And the big scene was done in Pinewood Studios, which was wonderful. We were on the James Bond set. It was fabulous. And they built a Cuban house, and the director was amazing. When I received the script for it, on the final page, it said, and the cast go onto the dance floor and dance Cuba's national dance, tango.
What?
Now, the guy who wrote it was a very good writer, but he wasn't anything to do with the Latin scene at all. It was just a plot thing that was set in Cuba. And when I had the pre-meeting to find out whether I could get the job as choreographer or dance coordinator, whatever it's called, I turned to the back page and said, is this meant to be a joke? Because given the politics of why it's being filmed in the UK, it's, as a Radio 4 listener, I'm thinking that's not very funny. That's going to offend Cubans and cause problems. Yeah. And the director didn't know. It was just a mistake, and that landed me the job.
Wow.
And the director was then open to things. So a lot of the problems we'd had with productions were overcome. And what I did was I reached out to as many people in the Cuban scene, Cubans in London, as possible. And they came back. I just said, basically, this is a chance to show Cuba as it is and make it as real as we can. Or you can have a Englishman's view of what they think Cuba is. People brought in pictures of their family that had been hanging on a wall to act as a prop. One guy brought in a VHS of his uncle's, it was a Bembe initiation, where his uncle was cut with machetes and he didn't bleed because of the trance-like state. And he showed it to the director, and it was treated with respect, and as was the dancing. And we got 3 bata drummers led by Flavia Flevo. And we were on this Pinewood set. I don't know how much this set costs, and the drummers started playing off set, and they started playing, and the connection with rhythm, it started with the extras, and it got us, and eventually the director stopped production, and we all went out. Crew, big burly lighting riggers, you name it. Everyone danced for about 15 minutes. And it was okay, guys, stop the drums. We need to get some work done.
Sounds brilliant.
My finest moments. It was fabulous. Yeah, for a couple of dances. It was good.
Great work. Great work. Well, as I said, I can't wait to air this and for people to know your history and all the things you've done. So I just want to thank you, Alistair.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
You're welcome.